welcome them in the chat if you'd like. Okay.
Sounds good.
All righty. So I'm actually excited today because last week after we finished, there were a few ladies who connected with me and told me that they weren't really all that familiar with emotional intelligence. Now, this workshop is kind of based on the workplace, but I really want to make sure everyone knows that it's not only for the workplace. The tools, tips, and tricks that you can learn through this workshop, you'll be able to use in all aspects of your life. So starting with me, who I am, my name is Andrea Minicola, and I spent the last couple of years as the president of the PWNCR and joyfully handed it over to Sarah Joy for 2021, and I have slid into the vice presidency. I'm the owner of a company called Speakable Language Solutions, and the workshop you're about to see was actually created by my company for another company called Sykes, who's also in Costa Rica. And I just thought, the women of the PWNCR could probably, really enjoy this as well. So a little bit about my company. We're a provider of business English classes and business English workshops in Costa Rica. And yeah, we're going to begin, but I'd like everyone, if you could, just to put your mute button on, but be ready to unmute yourself because it is interactive and I do want to hear from you and what your thoughts and feelings are about the topic. There's you've got your cameras on, which is wonderful. I love seeing your faces. And just so you know, if you know of anyone that works in human resources for international corporations in Costa Rica, not only do we have business English classes for those business professionals, but we also have 5 different workshops that we provide. Myself, I have over 30 years experience in business and business development, sales and marketing, everything from social media to customer service, which is why I became an entrepreneur. I was kind of a jack of all trades when it came to business acumen. And creating this workshop, I can't even let you know how valuable it was for me. I've struggled with emotional intelligence all my life. And for the last 3 years, I've been diligently trying to learn and to grow. And I'm not going to lie, it has not been easy for me. But hopefully sharing a little bit about my journey to emotional intelligence can help you guys. And at the very least, I think that each and every one of you can immediately take some of the information that you're going to learn today to improve not only your professional lives, but your personal lives as well. So just to give you guys an idea of what we're going to talk about today, just to go down this list. So I want you guys to think just for a second. Before, in the last presentation I did, I asked you if you knew anybody that you considered to be emotionally intelligent. And so right now I'm going to change that question just a little bit. And I'm going to ask you, what personality traits do you think that emotionally intelligent people have? Go ahead and speak up, anyone. Just go ahead. When you think about an emotionally intelligent person, what personality traits do you see an emotionally intelligent person having?
Well, I think of somebody who's patient, somebody who listens, somebody who communicates clearly, and somebody who uses logic rather than emotion.
Do you think maybe a person who has a high IQ would use logic and a person who has a high EQ would use more emotion?
It really would depend on the person. You could have somebody who has a low IQ who's everybody wants to be their friend and talk to them and trusts them. It's not really intelligence. It's their view of the world and their view of you.
Yeah, you're right, Helen. And empathy and some of those other things that you had mentioned are definitely able to communicate is definitely a sign of a person who has a higher emotional intelligence. Anyone else? Give me
someone who is empathetic.
Empathetic. Yes, empathy is one of the ways that an emotionally intelligent person can understand other people. So while you're definitely, you need self-awareness to be emotionally intelligent, to understand your own emotions, you also need to be able to understand others. So empathy is definitely a big part of that.
I would say also stable person.
Stable how?
Stable in a way that don't go crazy for something they hear, or they don't go either the other way sad. They kind of stay stable. They manage their emotion in a certain way.
Exactly, Romy, exactly. They manage their emotions regardless of how they feel, regardless of where they are on that roller coaster. They stay, you know, fairly level. That's a great trait for an emotionally intelligent person. You know, when emotional intelligence first kind of like appeared to the masses, it kind of served as like a missing link, you know, in a very peculiar kind of way, because people with average IQs were outperforming people with the highest IQs 70% of the time. That's what some of these studies showed that I was looking at. And this anomaly threw a really big wrench into the broadly held assumption that IQ, you know, academic intelligence, was the sole source of success. And now, of course, we know that's not true. Decades and decades of research, sorry, those are my puppies. Decades and decades of research now show us that emotional intelligence is really one of the most critical factors that sets apart a average performer to a performer that's going to be an incredible leader, like somebody who's going to obviously be ahead of the rest of the pack. The connection is so strong that 90%, again, this is from the research that I was looking at, 90% of top performers have high intelligence, which almost indicates that in order to be a top performer, in order to be a leader, in order to be the most successful version of yourself, you have to become emotionally intelligent. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. You can be the most emotionally intelligent, or sorry, intellectually intelligent person in the world, but if you don't have empathy and if you don't have the social skills to relate to other people, you're not going to be, you know, the leader of a movement, or you're not going to inspire anybody. Emotional intelligence is something in each of us, you know, it's a bit intangible, and that's why it's sometimes difficult to understand, but we can learn it. So it affects, you know, everything from how we manage behavior, how we navigate social complexities, you know, how we make personal decisions, and how we achieve any sort of like positivity or positive results in our life. And despite the significance of emotional intelligence, its intangible nature, like it's difficult to kind of pinpoint exactly what it is, makes it very difficult to know how much you have and what you can do to improve if you're lacking. You can always, you know, take a test online, but a lot of those tests for emotional intelligence are either inaccurate or they cost a lot of money. So one of the keys, you were talking about like what traits do emotionally intelligent people have? One of the first ones is they have a really robust emotional vocabulary. And we're going to work on this today. All people experience emotions, right? But there's very few people who can actually accurately identify them as they occur. There's the research that I was looking at showed that 36% of people can do this, which is kind of problematic because unlabeled emotions often are completely misunderstood, which leads to irrational choices and counterproductive actions. And people with a higher emotional intelligence, they master their emotions because they understand them, and then they use an extensive vocabulary of feelings to do so. So for example, what I'm talking about is if you ask somebody how they feel, many people might say, I feel bad. You know, I feel bad this morning. Emotionally intelligent people can pinpoint whether they feel irritable or frustrated or downtrodden or anxious. The more specific your actual word choice, the better insight you have into exactly how you're feeling and what caused it and what you should do about it. And one of the other ones is that you're curious about people. You know, if you know somebody that's emotionally intelligent, usually they're extremely curious about people. I want
Andrea,
you to think about, go
we
ahead.
do have some other comments in the chat. I don't know if you wanted to pick
Yeah,
those
Sarah
up.
Joy, maybe you could control the chat as we go and just interject.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, people have shared understanding, a good listener, patient, trustworthy, self-regulation, social skills, being balanced, honest yet sensitive. And a great comment from Eugenia. Emotional intelligence is part of the soft skills that are required in today's workforce.
Absolutely. And some companies, who gave that last comment? Sorry, Sarah Joy?
That was
Eugenia?
Eugenia. Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's actually companies now, like a lot of the international companies within Costa Rica, that are testing for that. So if you're, I'm just going to take an example, if you're working at a Concentrix, for example, and Concentrix hires you and hang on one second, sorry, my screen just went blank on my end. Sorry, can you repeat what you said, Eugenia? Sorry, I just had a blank on my screen.
Okay, I said that emotional intelligence is part of the soft skills that are required in today's force work.
Yeah. And I had mentioned Concentrix, and the reason why is because they're actually doing testing on a lot of their employees that they want to go to a higher level. For example, if you start off in a medium job, like a supervisor, for example, if you want to get up to that director position, the only way you're going to get to that director position is if you go through internal testing within the company to see if you're qualified and the right person for that job. Part of that testing has to do with emotional intelligence. So yes, that's a really good point, Eugenia. Another thing that emotionally intelligent people do is they embrace change. Okay, they're flexible, they're constantly adapting. They know that the fear of change is a paralyzing factor that can be a major threat to their success and their happiness. So they look for change, and they're not afraid of it when it comes. One of the other things is you know your strengths and your weaknesses. Right? Emotionally intelligent people don't just understand emotions, but they know what they're good at and what they're terrible at. And this was when I first began this journey, this was one of the hardest things for me, was my pride, my sense of pride. I couldn't even let go of my pride to admit who I was to myself. And so, like, if somebody would come up to me and say, maybe you should work on, getting to know your strengths and weaknesses, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, I know who I am. I know my strengths and weaknesses. Like, who the hell are you to tell me that I don't know? So I was very defensive, and I had this chip on my shoulder, and I really needed to get rid of those things in order to move forward. And understanding my strengths and weaknesses was a really big part of that. You also need to be a very good judge of character to be emotionally intelligent. Okay. One of the other things that I can think of is, you're difficult to offend. I have a really thick skin. This is actually one thing within emotional intelligence that I'm really good at. And I hope that as we're going through these, you're thinking about which ones you're good at and which ones you're not good at. I have a firm grasp of who I am at this point. I'm confident, and it's pretty difficult for somebody to say something to me or do something to me that gets my goat. But when they do, I have a really hard time letting go of a grudge sometimes, which is not that emotionally intelligent. So it's a journey, it's not something that you just wake up one day and you're like, hey, I'm emotionally intelligent today. It's a whole series of different things that you need to work on constantly in order to get over that hurdle that you need to do to grow up. I know that my parents, have said that when I was a teenager, you need to grow up, Andrea, you need to grow up. And I used to hate that. And I still don't really like the phrase, but it does remind me of emotionally intelligent people. To me, they seem very grown up, very secure in themselves. They also know how to neutralize toxic people. Have you ever been in the workplace and you've got that one coworker who's always like, oh, and they're always complaining and they're always bitching about other coworkers, and you have to know how to neutralize toxic people and how to calm them. It's exhausting sometimes if you have a workspace with somebody that's a toxic person, but emotionally intelligent people know how to deal with people like that. They identify their own feelings first, right? You have to be self-aware. They identify their own feelings first, and they don't allow anger and frustration to fuel the chaos of what's going on with their feelings. They also consider the difficult person's standpoint, which is really not that easy to do. But as I said, it's a journey, and it's something that everyone can really, learn and grow. Also, one of the last ones here is that I'm going to mention before I move to the next slide is you disconnect. You take regular time off. You get off the grid. You shut down your phone. You take time for yourself. You don't make yourself available 24/7 for people. Forcing yourself offline, and even, oh my God, turning off your phone gives your mind and your body a break. You need that calmness in your life. Same with drinking coffee and things like that. Like, don't drink so much coffee that you're freaking out. Emotionally intelligent people know that caffeine and alcohol and drugs and those things, fine if you want to go have some fun, on the weekends, but you're not over consuming all of those things. You also know to get enough sleep. Sleep, I can't even overstate the importance of sleep and increasing your emotional intelligence and managing your stress levels. It's a very important aspect. So, okay, so let me move on here. Maureen, do you want to read this for us?
Sure. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly. And this is about empathy. Yeah. Last year, I went home to visit my parents in my hometown, and I went back to my old middle school, and I stopped in, and I just spent 20 or 30 minutes in there. And what I remember is not what I learned. I don't remember anything that I learned. I don't remember my geography classes or history classes, but I remember how I felt. I remember exactly how I felt. When I was bullied, I remembered thinking I wasn't pretty enough or I wasn't smart enough. And that had a lot to do with the other kids. And so when I had high moments of emotion when I was a child, it cuts off what you learn. And when you're a child, you don't know how to deal with these things. So, you don't remember what you've learned. You only remember how you felt. And you remember the people that cared about you. You don't really remember what they said, but you remember that they cared about you. People will not necessarily remember what you said. Remember this, in your workplace or at home or with friends or family, it doesn't really matter. People will not remember what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Okay. Sarah Joy, do you remember last night when I sent you a WhatsApp message and I deleted it? Sarah Joy, are you there? Maybe she had to step out for a second. It's probably better that she's not here.
It's hard to get unmuted. There you go.
Okay. Oh, she is here. I'm going to tell the story anyway.
Okay, tell.
Okay. You're emotionally intelligent, or you're getting there, so I know you can handle this. But Sarah Joy made a small error yesterday in sending an email out, and there was an error in the email, and she was really beating herself up over it. She's a sensitive person, and she was, upset by it. And I sent her a message, and I realized after I sent the message, I thought, how is this going to make Sarah Joy feel? And I realized that it probably wasn't going to make her feel any better. In fact, it was probably going to make her feel worse. I told her, don't worry about it. It happens to everybody. And then I said, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little embarrassed because a few people I know were coming to the emotional intelligence workshop, and I really hope it doesn't happen again. And Sarah Joy, sorry.
No, this is great. I thought that might be what the message you deleted was.
And so I thought about it right after I sent it, and I thought, you know what, this isn't going to help anybody. This isn't going to make Sarah Joy feel any better. It's not going to make me feel any better. And so I deleted it, and then I sent another message. And Sarah Joy, how did that second message make you feel?
It made me laugh out loud. It made me realize that it wasn't the end of the world, that I'd made a mistake, and that, everything's going to be fine. And that, that was really emotionally intelligent on your part. I appreciate it.
But I did send a crappy message first. So
Which happens, yeah.
It just proves, we're all growing and we're all learning. But that's something that you should remember is people won't remember what you say. They will remember how you made them feel. And so when you're going to communicate with people, can't forget about the empathy part, because that's what I forgot about with Sarah Joy. I didn't think enough about how she was feeling and how my words were going to affect her. Okay, maybe it made me feel a little better because I was a little frustrated, but in the end, it wasn't going to help anybody. It's funny how important emotions are in our lives, but yet we're not taught them in the classroom. We're not taught about emotions. So the first one, the art of managing our emotional intelligence is managing our emotions. So let's start by talking about emotions, how we can become more aware of our emotions, and we can actually learn to be more emotionally intelligent. So we talked about the quick definition already, but just to recap for those of you who came in a little bit late, it's the art of managing your emotions. And what does that mean? What does managing your emotions mean? It means having the ability to be aware of your emotions, to name your emotions, and it's the ability to relate to others in an effective way, both personally and professionally. In simple terms, it means to understand the emotions that drive our behavior and impact people, whether that be positive or negative, and how to start learning to manage those emotions, both our own and others, especially when we're under pressure, because this can really, this is one single thing that can improve your life tenfold. It's literally, I'm a better person. I know that sounds arrogant and cocky, but I feel like by learning emotional intelligence and how to be more emotionally intelligent, I feel I've become a much better person. And I hope that after this workshop ends, you guys will feel similar or start your own journey towards emotional intelligence. So many people really don't take the time to understand their own emotions of others. So last week we did a Google Mood Meter, okay? And the Google Mood Meter helps us name our emotions and manage our emotions, and having the vocabulary to name your emotions and to understand yourself. So I know a few of you did this last week, so I'm going to go quickly through this instead of spending as much time on it as I did last week, so I can spend more time on some other slides. So let's start with this really quick. Here's a quick cool tool. It's called the Google Mood Meter. And my first question is, how are you guys feeling right now? Okay, not about life, just in general, like on a scale of 1 to 5. Okay. If you're like a -5, you're probably thinking things like, oh my God, do I have to sit and listen to this girl for another hour? Or like, that's what we do now at the PWNCR. We have to sit around and talk about our feelings. Okay. So if you're feeling kind of like that, maybe you're like a -4 or a -5. Maybe you're a +3. Maybe you're thinking to yourself like, wow, I get to sit with Andrea and talk about my feelings. That's awesome. I'm going to learn so much today. Or maybe you're a +5. Maybe there's like no words in the whole entire Spanish or English language that can describe your feelings right now because you're just so deliriously happy. But please give yourself a grade. Okay, I'm going to start on pleasantness. Okay, that's across the bottom. Okay, and it's going from left to right. So you'll see -5 is blue, -4, -3, -2, -1. They're all in the blues. And +1, +2, +3 is all in the greens. So choose one right now. Give yourself a grade. Okay. Okay, now go to the other axis. It says energy. Okay. And this has to do with literally how much activation that you guys are feeling right now. +5 is like you're so activated, you just can't contain yourself. And -5 means you are in the deepest, darkest pool of despair that you've ever been in your entire life. Okay, -5, you feel like you're being pulled to the ground. +5, you're so highly energized, you just can't contain your body. Where is your energy right now? Okay, so obviously they created this with 2 different axes. So we have the yellow, blue, red, green, and let's just see. How many of you are feeling yellow right now? Let me hear you guys. Take off your mute.
I'm probably yellow. Yep.
Yellow.
Yellow, Sarah Joy?
I'm lower on energy because I have a hurt back, but other than that, I'm okay.
Anyone else? Tell me where you are.
I'm yellow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused. So yellow, is it good or bad?
Good.
On the mood meter?
Yep.
Well, tell me where you are.
Well, I wrote that I am in, well, I don't know.
Yellow's good, by the way. It's like high energy and pleasant.
Okay, so I would say I'm +4 yellow and +4 green. I don't know if that's the way it works.
That's awesome. You know, green is good. You're pleasant, but your energy is just, you know, a little bit lower.
Okay.
How many of you are blue or red though? Anyone?
No. +3.
I am blue.
I'm not gonna lie about when Sarah Joy can tell you this. When I woke up this morning, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I was yelling at my animals. I was laying in bed when she called me and I was like, Sarah Joy, I need to do something. My energy, I'm just low. I'm on I'm on low energy, low everything.
Last week, remember, I was -4. So I went from blue to yellow.
And you're right, Romy, it changes all the time. But when you get into situations where perhaps you have to make decisions, it's good to know where you are on that mood meter, because how you feel affects your decisions directly. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. So, okay, now I want you guys to choose a word. I want you to choose one word to explain how you're feeling right now. Okay, Margie, what's your word?
I'm tired.
Lily?
That's my work today. Yes, I'm blue.
Margie's tired and blue.
Yep.
We need to change that.
I know. It's been pretty hard today.
What's your strategy to change that, Margie?
Well, I'm sitting here listening to you and trying to understand what to do.
Let's see if we can try to give you a strategy today, Margie.
Thank you.
Okay. Lily, how do you feel? Natalia, how do you feel?
I feel relaxed and happy. I just see my son waking up, which starts stressing me a little bit, like, oh, is he going to ask for breakfast or what? But but I'm happy and relaxed today and this morning. And there is a special reason I'm here in the meeting, so it makes me feel very happy.
Good, and it's
There,
important to recognize what makes you happy and what calms you down.
is there a definition, for example, like energetically relaxed?
I don't think so, Romy, but that was a good
Energéticamente
attempt.
relajada. I don't know how to translate that. Huh?
Okay. But I think one of the things is it's hard to choose. It's hard to pick just one word because we feel a whole bunch of things in a whole bunch of different ways from the second we wake up until the second that we go to bed. Did anybody have any trouble finding the right word? Alegría?
Well, I had trouble finding one word, that's right. And I ended up choosing kind of a bland word, content, which is, I'm okay, I'm happy, I'm not hilarious, I'm just tranquil, just and absorbing this great workshop. I'm really enjoying it.
Look at that. She even squeezed in a compliment at the same time. Maybe she has higher emotional intelligence because she made me feel good, right?
Good.
Make sure your words are gonna, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Okay. Okay, so why do you think it's difficult to find one word? Anyone?
Like you said, because there are lots of different things, you're aware of your surroundings, what's happening with my animals, with my husband, with my plans for tonight, etc. It just, there's a lot going on and it's hard to focus on one feeling.
It is hard to focus on one feeling. Tell me by either a show of hands, if you have your camera on, or verbally, how many of you are gonna have a little bit of trouble staying focused for this whole workshop? Completely 100% focused on this workshop for the whole, okay? Phyllis, Helen, a couple ladies that are being honest, right? Who else?
I'm pretty focused. I'm pretty focused and I'm intrigued. I have to be honest. Yes, I have backache and I have lots to do, but I'm intrigued, so I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being one of the people that didn't raise your hands. That's fine too, but sometimes it's impossible not to be able to focus for that long of a period of time. For this presentation, I want to give you guys an idea of the perfect spot that you can all be. I want, Andrea Minicola, I want all of you to be at a +1 and a +1 for this workshop, okay? I'm setting an emotional goal for you. And I am going to call it the spot of joyful effort. +1, +1, the spot of joyful effort, okay? And what I would like you to do is I would like you to think about where you are in reference to that point, if you're looking at the mood meter, okay? And what strategy might best serve you to try to stay there for the next 60 minutes? Okay, think about that. How are you going to stay at 1 + 1 for the next hour? What's your strategy? Giulietta, do you have a strategy to be at 1 + 1 for the next hour? Janice? Anyone? Does anyone have a
I
strategy?
say take notes helps me focus. Taking notes.
Same here.
Okay. That's
Water.
a strategy. Yeah.
Drinking water.
Well, that's an interesting strategy for sure.
And breathing properly, breathing.
Every time I want to do something, I just pick.
So hi, Andrea and ladies. I was successfully on mute. So that kept me at -1. But my response to your question, Andrea, was, I'm just going to look at your smile. That keeps me at 2+.
So for those of you who don't know Giulietta Broomfield, she's actually one of the people in my life who I consider to be emotionally intelligent. She's a coach.
Sometimes.
I consider her a mentor, and I strive to be a little bit more like her all the time. So And so I want each of you to make this relevant to your life. First of all, it's not very easy to come up with answers to some of these things. You know, if I can just tell you guys, okay, there's no strategy, you just need to focus. Okay, there's no past, the future hasn't happened yet. You know, so I want each of you to just be here with me now. You know, be in the present moment. Active listen. All right, everybody, go. Okay, it doesn't work. Is everyone focused? Is everyone present? Is everybody at 1 + 1? Okay, I told you that that's where you needed to be, right?
No, but I'm sure I heard that from some teachers along the way.
But the answer is no. If my guess is correct, you guys are no different than you were 3 minutes ago. Okay? Me telling you that you need to focus, me telling you that you need to be present, me telling you that you need to try to be more emotionally intelligent isn't going to make it so. Okay? So the key is trying to figure out how to do it yourself. And figuring out how you feel isn't very easy. You know, we have, as we were just talking about, we have so many emotions. How many have you have been at work or at home or anywhere really, and had somebody come up to you and say, tranquilo, calm down? Anyone?
Oh yeah.
Sarah Joy, how did that make you feel?
Usually ramps me up to get more upset.
Exactly. So
there was a time that there was this saying, tenga paz. It's like, it's the worst. Tenga paz is like, you're getting too bad. Relax, calm down. It's like, please don't say that.
It makes you feel worse, right?
Yeah.
So nobody else can regulate your emotions. Nobody else can make you focus. Nobody else can make you be present. These are all things that you have to do on your own, because when someone else tells us, tranquilo, calm down, it just makes us angrier, right? Or if you're at home with your husband or something like that, and they're like, you know, oh, honey, I love you, but I just really need you to calm down. It's like, right? Telling someone how to strategize, like I just did to you guys, like what your husband, go ahead.
Depends, because sometimes depending of the situation, it makes you realize that you maybe are going like, so it's time to regulate.
Exactly.
It depends the tone. I think it will be depend on the tone they say it. Because if somebody say no, just relax, like, yeah. But if they say it depends, I think, of the on the moment and the tone of voice.
It does, for sure, yeah.
So when someone says that to me, it really makes me feel worried, like saying, oh my God, maybe I'm behaving like a crazy woman.
Yeah, and it makes us feel worse than we actually,
exactly.
we actually already feel. Okay, everyone sit up straight, sit up really tall in your seats. I want everyone to take a nice long inhale. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If not, no problem, keep them open. Trying to paint a mental picture here, right? It's 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. You wake up. How do you feel? No, don't answer. Just internal talk right now. As you wake up each morning, a typical day, how do you feel? It's breakfast time, you're eating breakfast at home, or you're waiting to eat until you go to work, or until you have to go out and run some tasks. Are you having a good cup of coffee? Are you having a bad cup of coffee? How do you feel when you do your morning routine every single day? Okay. All right, on your way to work or on your way out during the day, is there traffic? No traffic? Public transportation? How do you feel? What are you doing on your way to work or on your way to get these tasks done every day? Are you texting like you shouldn't be? Are you taking phone calls? Are you on the radio? Are you working from home? Are you like me and you're still in your pajamas all day? Okay, all right, you arrive at work, you walk around, you go to the mall where you're shopping, you get to wherever you're going, you have, you know, task 1, task 2, task 3 you're doing. You have meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3. You know, you're going through emails, no emails, texts, no texts, phone calls, no phone calls. How do you feel? Okay. lunchtime comes around, are you eating healthy or unhealthy? Are you chewing and enjoying, or are you just swallowing? How do you feel? Who are you with? Are you alone, with others? Okay. You're on your drive home at night, or is there traffic? Are there distractions? When you get home, are there kids? Do you find time to exercise? Is there a partner? No partner? What's the evening like? Are you watching Netflix? Are you reading? It's time to go to bed. What's your evening routine like? What are you thinking about as you put yourself to sleep? Okay. I want you guys to raise your hand if you had more than, say, 10 emotions throughout the day. Okay. Most people have like so many different emotions that you experience throughout the day. In fact, I bet that you probably feel like you had hundreds of different feelings every single day. We tend to feel 3 to 5 different emotions in a minute. and sometimes, in some instances, if I were, we have more than that. If I was going to ask you guys to get back on the mood meter, do you see yourself kind of living in one quadrant throughout the entire day? Or do you see yourself going throughout different quadrants, like yellow in the morning, blue in the meeting, and then red here and blue there? That's how I would describe myself. So I'm hoping for the last 45 minutes, I've shown you guys how to be a little bit more self-aware, because that's the first key to becoming emotionally intelligent. You're not going to learn everything today. This isn't a class that you take and you master it. You need to be aware of it. You need to be aware of your own emotions and your own feelings, and you need to do that on a daily basis in order to improve your level of emotional intelligence. You'll understand yourself so much better. It's interesting how much time and energy and passion we all pull into becoming smarter people, into having a really high IQ. Oh, I have an MBA and I went to this university, and yet most of us can't even explain how we feel, nor can we put a name to our feelings. So let's go into a few stats really quick here. I want to talk about well, there's Lady Gaga. So there's this guy named Mark Brockett. He's on the left of Lady Gaga there. He's a psychologist at a university, and he wanted to find out on a large scale how people felt. So he did a study trying to understand. First, he tried to understand the youth of the United States. So he did 3 large studies over the last 3 years. The first study involved 45,000 high school students, and he did the study in collaboration with pop singer Lady Gaga, and the foundation is called Born This Way Foundation. So they gathered information from all over the US with these 45,000 high school students to look at the state of emotional affairs, like how do all these kids feel? So I asked you guys to think about your feelings first, right? So let's look at the youth, the top 3 feelings of the kids in the United States. What do you guys think? Can anyone throw out some emotions? What do you think the highest emotions were for teenagers in the United States? How did they feel? Go for it, guys. Just yell it out.
Anxious?
Anxious? Frustrated?
Stressed.
And stressed. So any positive? Do you think they were all negative emotions? And do you think, like, what was the ratio? Was it like half positive and half negative, or 1/3 positive, 2/3 negative, or was it all negative? What do you think, Sarah Joy, since you were talking about it?
Well, I'd like to think that there were positives, but yeah, I mean, having fun should be like a teen. I think, like Gilletta said, having fun should be what they feel, but I don't know that that's how they would have responded.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would think a lot of them would feel isolated.
Isn't that? 75%. Sarah Joy, did you read this presentation before? Come on, you're cheating.
No, I've read enough about US high school students. Oh, that is so sad.
That is
75% were negative. The top 3 words: tired, bored, and stressed. And Mark, the guy that did this study, he actually went a little deeper, and he was like, okay, so but what percentage of time were these teenagers feeling like this? And he found that they were stressed 80% of the time. Stressed 80% of the time, bored 70% of the time. Okay. I want you to go
Positive.
ahead.
What were some of the positive emotions that we couldn't even come up with one?
Other teenagers, they're always so difficult. So, okay, I want you to think of two words: innovation and creativity. Okay, innovation and creativity. What happens if you're in an environment where you're feeling tired, bored, and stressed? Tired, bored, stressed, tired, bored, stressed, tired, bored, stressed. Okay? No innovation, no creativity, right? And then with some additional funding that Mark got, he decided to look at 25,000 people across the workforce in the workplace. Guess what the top 3 business emotions or emotions business professionals had?
Tired, bored, and stressed.
The number one feeling, stress, exactly. Other emotions, feelings were busy, tired, anxious, and what a crazy cycle, you know, feeling busy and tired and anxious all the time. One of the other things this study really brought to light is obviously there's good stress and there's bad stress as well. And before we move on really quickly, because I know we've got to look at the time, I just want to take a minute to let you guys know that bad stress, or stress isn't always bad. I personally actually like to work with people who experience some stress, because if they have a slight anxiety problem, it means they get stuff done, and that's a good stress. But unfortunately, one of the things that Mark discovered in his studies was that most of the stress that business professionals feel is a bad stress. And I know some of you can identify with this. You can write in the comments if you'd like, if you feel this way. The stress that makes you not want to get up out of bed in the morning. You know, the stress that makes you, when you are at work, you're not really present at all. The stress that makes you physically sick when you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to go to this job. I don't want to go to this meeting. I don't want to participate in this social group that I'm a part of. Like whatever it is, you just don't want to do it. So just of my own curiosity for the people here that are, just for the people that are in the workforce, how many of you believe that these feelings that you just saw, from tired, bored, stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, frustrated, how many of you think these emotions are important and matter for an important thing in a person's life? Let me see your hands. Is it important? It's important. Yeah, exactly. It's extremely important. That's right. Emotions matter. And most of us have just proven that while some of us are in touch with our emotions, a lot of us aren't directly in touch with our emotions. And so the next slide that I'm going to go through really quickly is five big reasons why emotions matter. The first story I shared with you was me going back to my middle school, and I remember all of the bad feelings that I had when I was bullied. I remember the bad things, how I felt when people said negative things to me. I don't remember anything that I learned. I don't remember anything. And if you look at number 1 in this slide, attention and memory and learning. Okay, so if you're feeling if you're focused right now and you're present and you're engaged, that's great. Then that means you're probably learning something today. But if you're a little bit bored right now, you're already somewhere else. Okay, you're already in your head working on a different project. If you're frustrated, you're just sitting there thinking about God knows what. But I'm sure you're experiencing a lot of self-talk right now in your own head. If you're stressed, you're thinking, you know, oh my God, how do I get out of here right now? I don't want to be in this presentation. So I think back again to my middle school years, and I didn't learn anything. I don't remember anything I learned because I was so emotionally destroyed in so many ways. My brain was preoccupied with friendships and the need for friendships, and why would I want to be in a classroom or even care about what they were teaching me? Same with all of those high school kids, those 45,000 high school kids that they did this study on. You know, it's the same when you're in an adult workplace. It's the exact same whether you're a child or you're an adult in some aspects. Emotions affect your attention, your memory, and your learning. So that's number one, 5 big reasons why emotions matter. The second is decision making. I'm just curious, by show of hands, has anyone here ever made a bad decision? Everyone's hand should be up, obviously, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to make you share publicly the bad decisions that you've made, but so we know that how we feel shifts the way we make decisions. And so Mark, this guy that I was researching, he did another study with educators. So let's just imagine right now, guys, that you're all teachers. Everyone here is a teacher, okay? And I just randomly assigned you, okay? I want you to think about a day that was really great. I want you to think about a day that was really shitty. I want you to think about a day that was really great. I want you to think about a day that was really shitty. And then I want you all to spend 5 minutes just writing about it, okay? Hypothetically, okay? And then immediately after everyone finished their paragraph, whether they were supposed to write about a great day or a shitty day, they all put them in, and then they had to grade the papers. Does anybody think there was a difference in the grades they assigned depending on whether they wrote they had a great day or a shitty day? Yeah, Helen, yeah, absolutely, you were right.
100%.
They graded the papers, and there was a 1 to 2 full grade on average difference. And one of the most interesting things about this little experiment was at the end of the study, the teachers were asked, do you believe that how you felt influenced the way that you evaluated the essay? And what percentage of the educators do you think said, yeah, of course, the way I felt affected the way I evaluated the essay? How many people do you think said that?
Very few.
25%.
90% denied it. Very few, you're right. 90% of the teachers said, absolutely not. I am a professional. The way I feel does not reflect how I grade papers. Okay. And they said that there was no way that how they felt would have influenced that. And I think that what this tells us is a lot. I think the primary thing that our emotions are influencing and biasing is the way that we are seeing the world and the choices that we're making, but it's happening outside our conscious awareness. Okay, so how we feel affects the decisions that we make. That's scary when you think about it, right? Like, you have to be emotionally stable in order to make positive decisions in your life. So third one here is relationship quality. And I asked you this before, but I'm sure that, just curious, does anybody here have a colleague or coworker or boss or relative who's just hard and difficult to be around? They're disagreeable, they're always in a bad mood. Yeah, Helen, who do you know like that? Unmute yourself, love. Helen, unmute yourself.
No, I've worked with people like that, people who always see the dark side of life, who always see bad things coming no matter what. And the fact is, you don't want to hang around them because they bring you down
they
too.
don't make you feel good.
No, they don't.
Right? It has nothing to do with intellect. It has to do with emotional intelligence. They're like, I don't like that idea, or why do you want to do it that way? Or, they're always so negative. So emotions are signals. They tell us whether to avoid or approach. So when we think about people or our clients or products, how they make us feel makes us want to move towards them or away from them. Can you all identify with that? Okay,
Yes.
it's a pretty simple concept, but when it comes to business products or sales or team management, or a lot of you aren't in the workforce even still, but it's applicable to your regular life as well. We move away when something makes us feel bad, period. We move away from something when it makes us feel bad. So back to the situation with Sarah Joy. Sarah Joy is the president of the PWNCR, and I'm the vice president. It's crucial that the two of us have an excellent working relationship and that we communicate properly. So when I sent that message to her and I realized, you know what, this is not going to make her feel good, and she's not going to be able to do her job properly if I'm making her feel bad. So you have to know that how you make decisions and how emotionally intelligent you are does affect your relationship quality, right? Physical and mental health. It also emotional intelligence. If we display more positive emotions, and people who are more gentle with their expressions, they're saying to you, I'm here for you, right? If I sit here, like, sorry, I guess my video. If I sit here with like my arms folded for this entire workshop, and I'm kind of going like this all the time and looking around, immediately, you guys are thinking, oh boy, this girl does not make me feel good. Okay, she's not approachable. She has power issues or control issues. So your physical and mental health, your body language, all of these things really make a difference. In the last 5 years, this is another really interesting statistic, there's been 20% increase in psychiatric hospitalizations. And it's actually gone up 20% a year for the last 5 years. Now, if we look at the indicators of stress, pandemics make us stressed. Not being able to have our normal lives makes us stressed. When going out to the supermarket can potentially kill you and you can spread it to your whole family, this is making us stressed. People are experiencing high activation emotions. Excuse me. Cortisol is being released. Confusion is happening. The inability to fully concentrate, and lots of other things because of this pandemic. So, and the last piece is creativity. Okay, and how many, just by raising your hands, thinks creativity is important? I think it's a huge important thing in life. And your emotional skills is, again, directly correlated with your ability to be creative. And we know that from research. Cognitive, the ability correlates with creativity. Okay, cognitive ability correlates with creativity, but only up to an average IQ level. See, most people think that creativity is a cognitive process, but the higher your IQ, the more creative you are. But what happens with cognitive ability is that it goes like this. It plateaus. Okay. So the question is, what is explaining the rest of the variance in creativity? And experts have found that the variance is emotional intelligence. Okay. How many of you guys have heard the word grit? Who knows what that means? Can someone give me a definition of the word grit?
Endurance.
Perseverance.
Perseverance, yep. Those are great examples of what the term grit means. It's not, grit is usually not correlated with creativity or academic achievement, but that the skills of emotional management are. And I think for that reason, for example, how many of you have tried to be creative and failed at an attempt? Or how many of you have gotten negative feedback? How many of you have been frustrated with a project or presentation you're working on? How many of you have been disappointed in your own work? Sarah Joy's like, me. So emotions, the point is emotions are inherent in everything, okay? Absolutely everything. And some people say, well, you just got to push through it, But how do you manage the disappointment? How do you manage frustrations? How do you manage being overwhelmed? How do you manage feedback? In life, when we're trying to be creative, we're trying to do the things that we think are important at work. And there's going to be like hundreds and hundreds of people that are in our way. And the big question, ladies, is, do you have strategies to overcome and to persevere? Do you have strategies to manage difficult emotions that come up for us as you're trying to create something, right? Okay, let me see. How are we doing for time, Sarah Joy? I think we're right at 10:30 already, aren't we? Good. Perfect timing.
Yes, we are.
The second part is we're going to talk a little bit more about self-awareness, which, as you can see, is the ability to understand your emotions as well as recognize their impact on relationships and performance. What I have learned is that if you want to do great work in terms of this idea of emotional intelligence, you first got to get on the people bus. And what I mean by that is you have to like people. And this is, I'm going to be very honest with everyone here, is that was one of my most difficult empathy and liking people was one of the most difficult things that I had to overcome. I like people, but I don't necessarily want to be everyone's best friend. I empathize with people, but I only empathize with a handful of people that I kind of choose that I want to empathize with. I have a very difficult time empathizing with people that I don't know or that I feel like I just don't have time for. So this exercise in self-awareness and emotional intelligence was very valuable for me. So you must be self-aware. You have to be self-aware in order to get any better with emotional intelligence. So now, hopefully we believe that emotions really matter, right? Of course, we've just spent the last like 40 minutes talking about how they matter, right? But I'm not sure that we live in a world where people believe that how people feel matters. Okay, I'd like to just take a moment and think about someone who you think is emotionally wise. I know we did this a little bit, but for those of you who weren't with us last week, I want you to think about somebody who you think is emotionally wise, emotionally self-aware. Do you know someone who is like the personification of emotional intelligence? What are the skills that they have? What do you think? Let's hear from, let's see, let me pick somebody I haven't heard from. I'm gonna ask Eugenia.
I would say the Pope.
The what, sorry?
The Pope. The Pope in the Vatican.
The Pope in the Vatican, okay.
Yeah, I think he is always trying to understand everybody's position and to understand the root of every situation. And then he really works hard to write his messages that he tries to help people around the world, no matter what culture, what educational background or whatever. I think he's got a very strong emotional intelligence.
I think that's a great example. I think that the Pope got to his position most likely, I'm not claiming to know the Pope, by the way, but most likely because he was emotionally intelligent. I think that's one of the reasons why he got to the position that he got to. Okay, anyone else? Thanks, Eugenia.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Do you know
Hi.
someone who is like the
Andrea,
personification?
I have a question, right? It's most of women in my family are very aware of their emotions, but they also have an incredible amount of energy. Like I ask myself, how do they do that? My goodness. So I guess emotional intelligence help you to save energy. Maybe that's the way it works. That's like a question I'm asking myself right now. Like how do they manage to do so many things at the same time and go through so many situations?
Well, they have the energy to get through all of these situations, but while they're in these situations, are they making emotionally intelligent choices? And are there actions?
Yes, exactly. And they also engage in so many different things. Like for example, let's say, let's go to visit, well, not now, right? But let's go to visit Aunt, I don't know, Lola in like thousands of miles away, and let's take care of her and let's make a project for her, and let's, I don't know, raise money or whatever it is. And they commit themselves with so many things. And well, for me, that's
I
incredible.
can't attest to busyness being an attribute to emotional intelligence. It sounds like while they are busy, they're doing some really amazing things. But my answer is I don't know. The reason I don't know is because I'm not an expert in emotional intelligence. I have started my journey and I've researched a lot, and what I'm presenting to you today is part of that research. But I don't know. I don't know if I guess I would have to know your family. I would have to know what kind of activities that they were engaging in and how they were behaving. It sounds to me like you're very lucky and you've got a very empathetic and understanding family.
To me,
Yes, thank you.
I'm hearing Natalia say that the women in her family are caretakers. And I see that that is a part of emotional intelligence, and that people with high emotional intelligence are able to put aside their own frustrations and get, bring understanding and have other people feel like they're cared for. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have anything to do with status in life or station in life or your IQ. Empathy and caring about other people is classless. So whether you're the president of an international company or someone that's just trying to help out another family member, it's totally achievable. It's something I need to work on. It's one of my biggest faults, honestly. I don't know if that answered your question at all, Natalia, but hopefully it gets you on the right track to thinking
for
about it more.
sure. Yes, it's similar, for example, to how do women, I have only one child, so I'm not going to find out how it feels when you have four, right? Or it's like somehow you need to develop, right? Those to manage emotions in a better way, right?
Exactly. There's so many different things that happen throughout your life, especially probably in the last couple of years because of COVID, that you could look at and think I could have probably done a better job with that. The example I gave you was recent with Sarah Joy, but I'm going to give you another example right now, and then I want to ask you guys for an example of a time when you were not emotionally intelligent and now you know what you did and how you would fix it in the future. And so I'll start by giving an example so the rest of you can formulate an idea of what you want to share. So Juletta is familiar with this, and Phyllis is familiar with this, Sarah Joy as well. I had a woman who worked for me at Speakable Language Solutions for 3 years, and she was an excellent teacher, and she participated with me in many other things outside of the company. I considered us friends. I took her under my wing. I taught her a lot. I trusted her. And she sent me an email before Christmas last year saying, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. You've taught me so much. I've really enjoyed working for your company. And by the way, I am going to steal one of your largest clients from you when I leave. I resign." Well, I went nuts. I mean, I was crazy. I was just like, I still hold a grudge. It's still something that I have a really difficult time with. And I regret now some of the things that I said to her in the conversation I had with her. And I feel like I wasn't as emotionally intelligent as I could have been. And I feel like I could have tried a little harder to save that relationship, but I didn't. So that was my big moment of losing with emotional intelligence. Does anyone else want to share?
maybe I could share my experience. My mother had Alzheimer's, and for the last 10 years, I looked after her, and I had to hire different girls to help me. And there were times that I was very impatient, and I really, maybe I should say that I didn't treat them the right way because I was so square in the way I was trying to help my mother, protect my mother. And now when I look back at those, that time, I say, oh my God, sometimes I behaved like a crazy woman, trying to be so obsessive, compulsive, or I don't know what you say. So that's
It's like maybe you didn't even recognize yourself.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes afterwards I realized, I said, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I should have done that. And then when I went back to the girls and said, oh, well, I'm very sorry I did that, blah, 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 blah. And I remember the last girl that worked for me, and she came to me and said, well, you were a tough boss, but I learned a lot from you. Thank you. And I said, oh my God.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Anyone else have a situation where they lost their shit, per se? That's how I phrase it.
Andrea and ladies, I still have a big smile when I think of this one for me. It was at the beginning of COVID, and I was trying to get onto Automercado online shopping and input my location, which is a bit difficult out in the woods, as it were, or jungle. And I just couldn't work it out. And so my husband came to help me on my desktop, and he kept yelling at me to click this, click that. And then he burst out and saying, you're an absolute idiot. Why can't you just follow my instructions? Well, I lost it and didn't speak to him for an entire half day, which is an absolute miracle for me because we are the best of friends. And then I woke up the next morning and I just laughed. How stupid. What the hell we were doing. Yes. And so we just looked at each other, burst out laughing, and went to breakfast together and said, to hell with this shit. How could we lose it and be so silly? And I think that's just helped me now to say, hang on, when you feel yourself going to that negative place, just stop, just pause, look at yourself in the mirror and just laugh, because you're crazy, you're nuts. Yes. So that was for me. And it will never leave my memory because it was so nuts, so stupid. Yes, it was a learning opportunity as well.
And it's sometimes I feel like embarrassment is something too. Like when you behave like that, when you behave so irrationally and with such great emotion, you do things that you're ashamed of and you're embarrassed of and you regret, right?
That's why I think it's good to laugh and just share that crazy emotional time and just learn from it.
You're lucky that your partner also has some shred of emotional intelligence where you can get to a level where you can both do that.
You're right. You're right. You're not always lucky.
Thank you for sharing that, Gilletta. Has anyone ever gotten an email that just angered you? A phone call that just angered you? Had a coworker in front of you where you just wanted to like punch him in the face?
Oh yeah.
Okay. This is when you need to take that pause. Okay, this is when you need to stop and walk away and take that walk around the block. And this was Giuletta's actually advice to me, was, you know what, you just need to pause. Do not respond to somebody in anger. Make an excuse. Tell them you've got to go to the bathroom. Tell them you forgot something at home and you got to run home and get it, because if you respond with emotion, you're going to be embarrassed, you're going to regret it, and it's going to come back and bite you in the butt for sure. Okay. Almost done here, guys. We're getting to the last couple slides here, and I see we're good for time. So we recognize emotion through identifying our thoughts and feelings. That's what we started out with, talking about how, who do we see as emotionally intelligent? What kind of emotions and feelings and skills do they have? We went to the mood meter to try to figure out, like, how do we feel right now? We talked about our day. We did like a, this is how you're feeling in the morning. This is how you're feeling in the afternoon and in the evening. So it's important for you to understand not only your emotions, recognize emotions in yourself, but you also need to recognize those emotions in others. So pay attention to people's facial expressions, their body language, the tone of their voice. It's interesting, not all emotional concepts are emotions per se. Let's try changing our vocal tone, for example. I would like to see if you guys can generate the sounds of compassion. On the count of 3, I want you guys to generate a sound of compassion. 3, 2, 1.
Oh.
See how easy that was? See how easy that was? Okay. Now let's pretend that you all hate me. Let's pretend you're disgusted by me. Okay, let's hear your response.
Oh,
Let's
come
hear your
on.
response right now. 3, 2, 1. Let's hear disgust. 3, 2, 1.
You got it.
Come on.
Oh, come on.
That feels bad.
I know. Okay, now you're all feeling deep love for me. Okay, it's a love that there are no words for. Okay, it's a love that surpasses all other loves. You all love me so much. On the count of 3, I want to hear the sound of love. 1, 2, 3.
Ooh.
Pretty weak, right? You guys did really well with compassion, and you did really good with hate. You had no problem going, Andrea sucks.
Yeah, but love, you need to grab hold and hug.
Exactly.
It's
different.
Just verbally.
You're different. So when I asked you to make the sound of disgust and compassion and awe, you all had like a pretty good tone, right? A sound. But when it came to love, you were all a little bit off. So let's try again, okay? You all desire me. You all want to come live. You want me to come live in your house with you. On the count of 3, make the sound of desire. 3, 2, 1. So what we're trying, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help you differentiate between a feeling and an emotion. Okay. Whereas surprise, right, is a stimulus that causes a shift in our behavior and our physiology and our cognition. But love is more complex. It's more of a feeling. But desire is more of an emotion because it's an automatic response to stimulus. I'm trying to give you the language for emotion so you can understand the difference between a feeling and an emotion. Is it a mood? Is it a feeling? Is it an emotion? And it's important that you recognize that there is a difference. So understanding emotion. Why am I having these feelings? Where are these feelings coming from? When I had that person send me that email, these are some of the things I should have been doing, but I wasn't. So if I had taken the time to slow down, I would have had a much more emotionally intelligent response. So here's an easy one for all of you. I'm going to ask you to differentiate between 2 emotions. Okay. I want you to think about 2 words. So anger and disappointment. And I want to know, you've got 10 seconds. Just think about it. I want to know the difference between anger and disappointment.
anger is projected outward. Disappointment is and more of an inward thing. You know, it just brings you down.
Uh-huh. That could be definitely a good explanation. Okay. Anyone else? It's interesting, right? These two words, we use them all the time, but when we want to get specific between the two words, it's a little bit more complex. But disappointment has to do with unmet expectations. That's it, unmet expectations. I thought it was going to work this way. I thought I was going to get an A. You know, you're disappointed. Anger, on the other hand, tends to have a theme of injustice or unfairness. That was not fair. You know, how could you do that? How could you say that? So how many of you believe that there are people feeling disappointment, but end up expressing it so it looks like anger? Okay. A lot of people do this. Happens all the time. You know, I was one of those kids. I actually went to karate class and I took my yellow belt test and I failed. And I came home and I yelled at my parents. I was so mad. I was like so angry that I'd lost my yellow belt. You know, I hate you. Why did you make me go to karate? You know, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I'm embarrassed. And my parents responded pretty much the only way that they knew how. You can't speak to me that way, young lady. Get to your room. Wait until your father gets home, you know? So then father gets home and says, I thought I told you never to talk to your mother that way. You know, for crying out loud, I've had it. But not once did anyone say, how are you feeling? You know, so I ended up getting punished for being aggressive, but no one really knew how I was feeling. It looked like I was angry, but I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. I mean, a million things could be responsible for behavior. And what happens in our world is we spend way too much time judging people's behavior and emotions as opposed to trying to understand what the feeling and emotion are behind the behavior. Okay, which leads to our rules around expressing emotion in context. Is it appropriate? Let me just check here. Okay, we're getting 5 minutes away. I have a couple more slides here. I just want to make sure we're on time. Okay. So being able to label your emotions correctly, expressing your emotions appropriately, and regulating your emotions effectively are all really, really important. What are the strategies that I have available to me right now to manage emotions? You know, I asked you where you guys were on the mood meter, and you say blue, but you really need to be in the yellow. You know, what are your strategies for shifting from one place to another? Can you regulate your emotions up, or can you regulate your emotions down? It's about preventing unwanted emotions, reducing difficult emotions, initiating ones that you have, maintaining emotions that are useful to you, and trying to push away the emotions that are not useful to you. Okay, you know what, guys? For the sake of time, I'm actually going to skip this slide because I want to give you I won't have enough time, and I want to give you a tool that you can take away. So here we go. So this is called a meta moment. Okay, and a meta moment is a 6-step strategy to help you become more emotionally intelligent. So how many of you feel like some days you feel like you're about to lose it, right? We talked about that just a little while ago. I could have used this information and this meta moment when I've replied to some people in emails, because I have written some pretty bad emails that have embarrassed me that I shouldn't have in my past. So meta moments allow you to take control of your emotions before you act on anything. When we're overwhelmed by emotions, we're not usually at our best, right? We may blow up, we may say hurtful things, we might burst into tears, you know, but what happens if we had, you know, a tool or a strategy like I was talking about? Nobody can just come up to you and say, tranquilo, relax. It's like we need our own strategy so that we can control our emotions and we're not overwhelmed by our emotions. As we all know, the best our best attempts to stay calm and to stay in a perfect place of thoughtful reflection at work is great, but only when we feel like we're in control of our emotions. If you're raging with resentment or crushed by disappointment, you're probably not going to be capable of the reasoning required to see the situation in a new light. So the first thing you need to do is you need to bring down your emotional temperature. Okay? Lower your activation and give yourself the space. This is what I was talking about the walk around the block or the deep breaths. You need space in order to regain your rational thought and push out the disappointment or the anger or whatever it is that you're feeling. Excuse me. You might take, like I said, a few deep breaths. Whatever it is that you need to do to calm yourself down, it's time for a meta moment. This is what you need to do. So first, pause. Pause, 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 pause. Stop. Do not react. Do not reply to the email. Do not speak to the person that you're angry with. Okay, you need to pause and remove yourself from the situation until you are calmed down enough that you can have a intelligent emotional response to it. Pausing often helps you refrain from making a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. Okay. Pausing, I'll say that again because it's really important for a meta moment. Pausing helps you refrain from making a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. Many of us were exposed to destructive responses early in our lives. You know, my mom was one of those people, super dramatic. You know, she can snap just like that. So I was exposed to that at a very young age. So the negative talk, screaming, blaming, and so on. I'm not saying anything bad about my mom, by the way. I love her with all my heart. I'm just saying they require little cognitive control. To have these emotions, to be yelling at people and blaming people and finger pointing, it requires very little cognitive control. And they're often effective at getting rid of negative emotions, feelings, and providing temporary gratification. Temporary gratification, because trust me, you're not going to feel good in the long term. But at the time we fail to realize these strategies can actually, they can ruin our relationships. They can derail us from achieving our goals. So this tool called the meta moment is hitting the brakes and stepping out of time. And we call it meta because it's a moment about a moment. It might mean to mentally counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or depending on the severity of the emotion, taking 1 or 2 deep breaths also could be a part of it. Anything to give ourselves room to maneuver emotionally and to deactivate. Okay. A meta moment is when we stop the action and say, am I hearing this correctly? Or maybe we might say, I need to pause and take a deep breath right now so I won't blow my top, break down sobbing, or react in some other way that's impulsive and is not a wise response. Pausing helps you refrain from making a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. Okay. Pausing helps us gain control again, right? It helps us gain control. So to tap into our best selves, some people may think, like I said, of adjectives like compassionate, intelligent, or conscientious, right? Other people could picture an image or a book or an object. A good friend who is a principal at a middle school has a Smurf on her desk to remind her of her best self. Visualizing your best self. And I say this too, when I was president and now as vice president, sometimes I say, is this what a president would do? Is this how a president should react and behave? And that sometimes, visualizing in my mind what I think a president should be like and what I think a vice president should be like helps me use the proper level of emotion. Okay. So taking a meta moment, thinking about what you're going to say before you say it, seeing your best self, visualizing your best self, and then strategizing and then eventually you have success. And again, I know it's silly, but I'll take the email that the message that Sarah Joy and I had between each other. Something happens, okay? We made a mistake in an email that went out to a lot of people, okay? Okay, I felt, I didn't feel anger. I just felt, it was like an irritation almost. It was kind of like, damn, like this happened again. Like I felt like people might look at us and think we're unprofessional, okay? And then I stopped. Number 3, if you look at the screen, number 3, I stopped. Okay, I looked and I thought, you know what would a mentor do? What would a vice president do? What would a past president do? And they certainly wouldn't make the person feel worse than they already did. And I feel like that's what I had done. So I strategized, I deleted the message, I strategized, and I thought, okay, this is what I need to say in order to make Sarah Joy feel better, and for me to feel better, and for us both to go forward in a productive way. And we had success. Sarah Joy sent me a message and she was laughing her head off. She's like, oh my God, I'm like belly laughing right now. And that was the outcome that I had wanted in the first place. Okay. Social awareness is, I know that we've got on time right now. Oh, it's 11:04, ladies. So I apologize that we're running a little bit over. I'm going to skip the second last slide here because of the time, and I just want to respect your time and give you some takeaway thoughts today, okay? If anybody wants this presentation, by the way, I'm happy to send it to you. So increasing, yep, no problem, Maureen. Increasing emotional intelligence can be done by anyone throughout your life, but it takes, take it from me, it takes effort and continual practice. My life got better when I started to be aware of my emotions and how I was reacting to people and how emotions affected me. And honestly, I didn't like who I was necessarily 3-4 years ago. You know, I was kind of mean. I was a little bit of like the mean girl, you know, because I didn't empathize with people. I didn't think about the effects of my actions. And now that's all changed. And now I'm the leader of a business, and I was the leader of an organization, and I feel people reacting to me differently. I feel people, you know, asking me for advice and asking me for my opinion, and I see people moving towards me and not away from me. And that's one of the biggest, most happiest decisions that I've made through emotional intelligence. So the reward is evidence, lower stress, higher career achievement, greater satisfaction in relationships. And there's a few tips and tricks under there, some takeaway thoughts that you guys can take away. And I'm going to finish up with the ancient Cherokee story of the 2 wolves. I know everyone, well, I'm sure most people are aware of this story, but one evening, an elderly Cherokee brave told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. And he said, my son, the battle is between 2 wolves inside us all. One is evil. It represents anger and envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, doubt, inferiority, lies, false superiority, pride, ego. And the other wolf is good. It is joy, Sarah Joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. And the grandson thought about it for a minute and he said, Grandpa, which wolf wins? And the old Cherokee simply replied, the one that you feed. So the moral to my story and my presentation on emotional intelligence is that emotional intelligence is a learned, something that you can learn throughout your life. It's something that you can get better and better at as you go. You just need to feed it. You need to feed the good wolf. You need to feed all of those wonderful, generous qualities that I've just mentioned in order to be the person that you want to be. And emotional intelligence can get you there, not only to be a better person for your friendships and your family, but it's one of the only ways that you're going to become successful in your career and to move up that corporate ladder that a lot of you, I know a lot of you hope that you can get to. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. I really appreciate. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and Sarah Joy for facilitating it. Yeah,
Yeah.
this has been a great
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Very, very
Thank
welcome.
you. This is a great comeback from last week.
Yeah,
Shows
Yes,
so-
yes,
No
actually.
No
Well
glitches.
said.
For those of you who don't know Phyllis, I know if you have to leave, that's fine, go ahead. But Phyllis, did you leave?
No,
No, she's here.
I just wanted to say to you really quick, Phyllis, that I know that you're not perhaps as familiar with the concept of emotional intelligence. You told me that you weren't all that familiar with it, but I just wanted to let you know that I use you as an example of somebody, by the way, who I consider to be emotionally intelligent. So it's funny because you're not even aware, you weren't even really aware of the concept of emotional intelligence, but you really do possess a high level of emotional intelligence, just FYI. So you know, and I'm sure everyone else here will agree, won't you?
I agree.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Totally.
Sure,
I
absolutely.
use her too in the same way.
Yeah. So Phyllis, you're
Thank
somebody
you.
who I feel good about after I talk to you. You make me feel good about what I'm doing. You
Right.
always control your emotions. You never go too high or too low. You just kind of stay very stable, and I appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you very much. That's nice of you to say.
Okay,
Okay,
kids,
great.
it's
Bye-bye.
Saturday.
It's Saturday. May I take 2 minutes, because I don't think it would be fair to say that we're going to give away the gifts, the door prizes to those who are still here, because we did kind of say we were done. But I have my little bowl with the names, so I will email after who has won. So we have 2 wonderful door prizes. So let me mention those. Adele has given cedarwood essential oil from doTERRA, which is absolutely enchanting scent, and has all sorts of healthy properties. And Nikki has a piece of art from Fox Moon Studio. So, all right, let's see. For Adele's oil, we have Romy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, great.
And let's see, for Nikki's art, we have Helen.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations, Romy and Helen.
Thank you.
Didn't we get the art? Oh, it's a different art.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really like her pieces.
It's not James Theologus's art. It's a different one.
It's Nikki from Fox Moon Studio. So,
Yeah.
Those are amazing. Some amazing pieces. You're lucky, Helen.
so I'll introduce you guys via email. I'm sure you already know, but so that you can get those prizes. Thank you to both Adele and to Nikki for donating those. All right. Thank
so
you
much,
again,
everyone.
Andrea.
Have an amazing Saturday, everybody. Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good weekend. Bye. Thank you.